Welcome to my channel, a lead that brings your story about the love of a mafia boss. Now let's listen.
The fluorescent airport lights buzzed overhead, their harsh glow making my already pale skin look ghostly. I clutched my sleeping 3-year-old daughter, Lily, closer to my chest, her soft curls tickling my chin as I scanned the departure board through swollen eyes. Flight 2187 to Boston. Now boarding. My heartbeat quickened. He wouldn't think to look for us there, a city where I knew no one, where we could disappear. My fingers traced the fresh bruise blooming along my wrist, hidden beneath the sleeve of my oversized sweater. The last gift from David before I'd grabbed Lily and what little cash I could find, fleeing the house while he was passed out drunk. 6 years of marriage, of walking on eggshells, of broken promises that he'd change. 6 years too long. Final boarding call for Flight 2187. The monotone voice crackled through the speakers. I adjusted the single backpack containing everything we now owned and hurried toward the gate, the weight of exhaustion making each step feel like wading through concrete. The flight attendant's smile faltered when she saw my face. I'd done my best with concealer, but the split lip was harder to hide. Her eyes darted to Lily, then back to me with that look I'd grown to recognize. Pity. "We're fine," I murmured, though she hadn't asked. Just tired. The plane was nearly full, the cabin air thick with recycled breath, and the chemical scent of cleaning products. I navigated the narrow aisle, painfully aware of how disheveled I must look, compared to the business travelers in their crisp suits. The only available seats were in the back, next to a window, beside a man whose presence seemed to command the space around him. I hesitated. Something about him, the rigid set of his shoulders beneath an obviously expensive black suit, the way his long fingers tapped methodically against his knee, sent a warning shiver down my spine. But there was nowhere else to go, and the flight attendant was waiting. "Excuse me," I whispered, my voice barely audible above the drone of the engines. "I need to get through." He didn't look up from his phone, just shifted his legs slightly to let me pass. As I slid into the window seat with Lily still asleep in my arms, I caught a whiff of something that made my breath catch. Sandalwood, and something darker. Something expensive that reminded me of locked doors and secrets. The plane began to taxi, and I exhaled slowly, allowing myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, we had escaped. Lily stirred against me, her eyelids fluttering but not opening. I pressed my lips to her forehead, breathing in the baby shampoo smell of her hair, the one pure thing in my broken life. "She's beautiful." The voice beside me was unexpected, low and smooth like aged whiskey, with the barest hint of an accent I couldn't place. I turned, startled to find the man looking at me now, his eyes the color of steel, assessing and unreadable. "Thank you," I replied automatically, the social conditioning to be polite, overriding my instinct to stay silent, invisible. Up close, I could see he was younger than I'd first thought, maybe early 30s, with sharp cheekbones and dark hair cut close at the sides but longer on top. Handsome in a severe way, like a statue carved from marble. But it was his eyes that held me. The way they seemed to look through me, as if reading every line of my story. "You're running from something," not a question. A statement, delivered with such certainty that I felt the blood drain from my face. I'm not... My denial died in my throat as his gaze dropped deliberately to my wrist, where my sleeve had ridden up, exposing the finger-shaped bruises. Shame burned through me as I tugged the fabric down. "It's none of your business." The corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been amusement, might have been acknowledgement. "Of course." He extended a hand. "Alexander Volkov. Most people call me Alec." I stared at his hand, at the gleaming watch that probably cost more than 6 months of my waitressing salary, at the signet ring on his pinky finger. Everything about him screamed danger, yet I found myself responding, Emma Mitchell." I didn't take his hand. He withdrew it smoothly, as if my rejection meant nothing. "And the little one?" "Lily," I said, before I could stop myself. Why was I telling him anything? The plane lifted off, and my ears popped painfully. Lily whimpered in her sleep, and I hushed her, rocking gently. "First flight?" Alec asked, his attention now on Lily. I nodded, wishing he would return to ignoring me. "Give her something to suck on. It will help with the pressure." He reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a wrapped candy. Sugar-free, he added, seeing my hesitation. I took it reluctantly, unwrapped it, and gently pressed it between Lily's lips. She accepted it reflexively, her tiny face relaxing as she sucked. The man, Alec, was right. I felt a twinge of gratitude I didn't want to feel. Thank you. He inclined his head slightly, then looked away, signaling an end to our conversation. Relief washed over me. The last thing I needed was someone asking questions I couldn't answer. Not when David could be waking up now, discovering us gone, his rage building like a gathering storm. The next hour passed in blessed silence. Lily slept against me, occasionally stirring but never fully waking. I stared out the window at the clouds below, looking like a fluffy escape route to another world. Somewhere in those clouds was the boundary between my old life and whatever waited for us in Boston. I had exactly $3,027 saved from tips I'd hidden over the years, the address of a women's shelter, and the name of a diner that might be hiring. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was all I had. A sudden jolt of turbulence sent my stomach lurching. Lily woke with a startled cry, her blue eyes wide with fear as the plane dipped and shuddered. "Mommy!" She clutched at my shirt. "Shh, it's okay, baby," I soothed, smoothing her tangled curls. Just a bumpy road in the sky. But the plane dropped again, harder this time. Oxygen masks fell from the ceiling as the cabin lights flickered. Panic seized me as I fumbled to secure Lily's mask, then my own. My hands shaking so badly I could barely manage the straps, and then there were other hands, steady, sure, helping me. Alec calmly adjusted Lily's mask, then checked mine. "Breathe normally," he instructed, his voice so composed it was as if we were discussing the weather instead of possibly plummeting to our deaths. The plane leveled out after what felt like eternity but was probably only minutes. The captain's voice came over the intercom, explaining we'd hit unexpected clear air turbulence, but were now on a smooth course. As the masks were put away and nervous laughter rippled through the cabin, I realized I was gripping Alec's arm, my nails digging into the fine wool of his suit. I released him immediately. "I'm sorry. No need." His eyes held mine, and for a moment, I saw something that looked almost like concern. Then it was gone, replaced by that same cool assessment. "You've had enough to be afraid of." His words hit too close to the truth. I turned away, busying myself with settling Lily, who was now wide awake and cranky. "Are we there yet, Mommy? I want to go home." Home. The word was a knife twist. "Not yet, sweetie. We're going on an adventure, remember? To a new home." "But what about Daddy? And Mr. Whiskers?" Her lower lip trembled at the thought of the stuffed cat we'd left behind in our haste. I felt Alec's attention sharpen beside me, though he pretended to be absorbed in his phone. "Mr. Whiskers had to stay behind," I said carefully. "But maybe we can find a new friend for you in Boston." "I don't want a new friend. I want to go home." Her voice rose, drawing glances from nearby passengers. "Lily, please," I whispered, feeling the familiar mixture of guilt and desperation rising. "We can't go home. I told you. We're having an adventure." "Is that what you call it?" Alec's voice was so quiet I almost didn't hear it. I shot him a glare. "Please don't." To my surprise, he nodded and reached for something in the seat pocket. "Perhaps this might help?" He held out an airline magazine folded to a page with a maze puzzle. From his inside pocket, he produced an expensive-looking pen. Lily's crying subsided as curiosity took over. She eyed the pen with its shiny silver cap. "Can I?" "Of course," Alec said, his severe face softening just slightly. "It's a special pen. Only for brave adventurers." I wanted to be annoyed at his intervention, but Lily was already taking the pen, her tears forgotten as she began to trace the maze with intense concentration. I mouthed a silent thank you to Alec, receiving only that slight nod in return. The flight attendant stopped at our row with the beverage cart. "Something to drink?" "Just water for me," I said. "And apple juice for my daughter, please." "Sir?" she asked, turning to Alec. "Bourbon. Neat." His tone made it clear he expected the good stuff, not the standard airline offering. To my surprise, the attendant nodded without hesitation. She returned moments later with our drinks. As she handed Alec a tumbler that contained distinctly more liquor than the typical airline pour, I noticed how her hand lingered near his, how her professional smile warmed. He didn't seem to notice, or if he did, he didn't care. "You fly often?" I asked, immediately regretting breaking our silence. Alec sipped his drink before answering. "When necessary." "For business?" I pressed, not sure why I was pushing this conversation I didn't even want. His smile didn't reach his eyes, always. Lily tugged at my sleeve, proudly showing her completed maze. "Look, Mommy, I finished it." "That's great, baby," I said, grateful for the interruption. "Why don't you try another one?" As Lily flipped through the magazine, I felt rather than saw Alec shift beside me. "Your husband," he said quietly, ensuring Lily couldn't hear. "He will look for you." It wasn't a question, and the certainty in his voice made my skin prickle with fear. "Why would you say that? Men who leave marks like that." His eyes flicked to my wrist. "They don't like losing what they consider theirs." The truth of his words made me nauseous. "You don't know anything about me. I know the look of someone hunted," he replied, his accent thickening slightly. "And I know that women's shelters are the first place they look." My heart stopped. How did he know about the shelter? Had I mentioned it? No. Impossible. I don't know what you're talking about. The lie sounded hollow, even to my own ears. Alec's expression remained impassive, but something in his eyes changed, hardened. He reached into his jacket and removed a business card, sleek and black with only a phone number embossed in silver. "When the shelter doesn't work out, and it won't, call this number. Ask for me." I didn't take the card. "Why would you help me? You don't know me." "Let's just say I have a particular dislike for men who hurt women and children." A muscle in his jaw tightened, and for a split second, I glimpsed something raw and dangerous beneath his controlled exterior. The card remained between us, a bridge I wasn't sure I should cross. But something made me reach for it, slipping it into my pocket just as the captain announced our descent into Boston. As the plane tilted downward, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. Not just in taking the card, but in choosing Boston, in running at all. What if David found us? What if this strange man with his penetrating eyes and too accurate assessments was something worse than what I'd left behind? Lily yawned beside me, her small hand finding mine. "Are we going on our adventure now, Mommy?" I squeezed her fingers gently, acutely aware of Alec watching us. "Yes, sweetheart. Our adventure starts now." What I couldn't know then, as the plane touched down on Boston soil, was just how true those words would prove to be. How that simple, terrified decision to sit beside Alexander Volkov would change everything, for better or worse. The arrivals terminal buzzed with fluorescent-lit chaos, reuniting families, business travelers striding purposefully toward exits, airport staff directing the endless human current. I clutched Lily's hand in one of mine, and our backpack in the other, my eyes darting between the exit signs and the crowds, paranoid that somehow David had discovered our destination. "You have somewhere to go?" Alec's voice startled me. I'd assumed we'd part ways at the gate, but he'd fallen into step beside me, his presence creating an invisible barrier between us and the rushing passengers. "Yes," I lied, tightening my grip on Lily's hand. The women's shelter was on the other side of the city, and I had only the vaguest idea how to get there. "We're fine." His eyes, those unnervingly perceptive eyes, narrowed slightly. "Of course." Two men in dark suits materialized beside us, and my heart rate spiked until I realized they were looking at Alec, not me. One was massive, with a neck as thick as my thigh and hands that could easily crush stone. The other was leaner, but with a watchfulness that seemed to catalog every movement around us. "Everything is prepared, sir," the leaner one said quietly, his gaze sliding over me briefly before returning to Alec. Alec nodded once, then turned back to me. "My offer stands, Emma Mitchell." The way he said my name sent an involuntary shiver through me. "Boston winters are cold. The card has my number." Before I could respond, Lily tugged at my sleeve. "Mommy, I'm hungry. We'll get something soon, baby," I promised, grateful for the distraction. When I looked up again, Alec was walking away, flanked by his men, his expensive suit standing out among the casual travelers. I should have felt relief at his departure. Instead, I felt strangely abandoned. Was that man your friend, Mommy? Lily asked, watching Alex's retreating figure. No, sweetie. Just someone from the plane. I pulled her toward the exit. Let's find a bus to take us to our new adventure. The reality of Boston in November hit us like a physical blow as we stepped outside. Bitter, cold wind that sliced through my thin jacket and made Lily burrow against my side. I hadn't thought about winter clothes when I'd grabbed what I could. Another failure to add to my growing list. The bus ride to the shelter took nearly an hour, through neighborhoods that grew progressively more worn down. Lily fell asleep against me, exhaustion finally claiming her. I stroked her hair, watching the unfamiliar city slide past the grimy windows, second-guessing every decision that had led us here. By the time we arrived, darkness had fallen, bringing with it a bone-deep chill. The shelter was located in a converted church, its stained glass windows illuminated from within. A small handwritten sign beside the door read, Harbor Haven Women's Shelter. The woman at the intake desk had kind eyes that had seen too much, and hair prematurely streaked with gray. She introduced herself as Maureen, and didn't ask questions when she saw my face, just handed me forms to fill out, and assured me they had space. Just temporary, she explained as she led us through narrow hallways that smelled of industrial cleaner and old coffee. 2 weeks maximum, but we can help you find something more permanent, get you connected with services. Our room was barely that, a partitioned space with 2 narrow cots, a small dresser, and a curtain instead of a door. But it was clean, and more importantly, it had locks on the outside door that led to the communal hallway. Bathrooms shared, down the hall, Maureen explained. Breakfast is at 7, dinner at 6. We lock the doors at 9 p.m., so if you're out, you need to be back by then. I nodded, too tired to do more than mumble my thanks. After she left, I settled Lily on one of the cots, covering her with the thin blanket provided. She didn't wake, just curled into herself like a small comma. I sat on the other cot, the backpack between my feet, and allowed myself one moment, just one, of complete despair. What had I done? I had no job, almost no money, no friends in this city, and a child depending on me. David would be looking for us by now, his rage building with every passing hour. He had friends in the police department back home. What if he reported us missing? What if he claimed I'd kidnapped Lily? The black card Alec had given me seemed to burn in my pocket. I pulled it out, running my thumb over the embossed silver number. Who was he really? What kind of businessman traveled with what were clearly bodyguards? And why would he offer help to a stranger? I slid the card back into my pocket without calling. Whatever Alexander Volkov was involved in, it couldn't be anything good. And I'd had enough of dangerous men to last a lifetime. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by unfamiliar sounds. Other women crying, doors opening and closing, the distant wail of sirens that made my heart race every time. When morning finally arrived, announced by the harsh fluorescent lights flickering on in the hallway, I felt more exhausted than before. Lily woke cranky and disoriented. I want to go home, she whimpered, as I tried to brush her tangled curls. I want my room and my toys. I know, baby, I soothed, fighting back my own tears. But remember, we're having an adventure. And today, we're going to explore our new city and find Mommy a job. The shelter's communal breakfast was basic, but filling. Oatmeal, toast, coffee for the adults, and milk for the children. Lily picked at her food, eyeing the other children warily. I forced myself to eat, knowing I needed strength for the day ahead. I spent the morning filling out job applications at every restaurant and cafe within walking distance of the shelter. Most barely glanced at my application before telling me they'd be in touch, their eyes sliding past me as if I were already gone. A few looked too long at my healing split lip, at the bruise fading from purple to sickly yellow on my cheekbone. By afternoon, the weight of rejection settled heavy on my shoulders. Lily had grown tired and fussy, the excitement of adventure wearing thin. We stopped at a small park, its swings and slides a momentary distraction. As Lily played half-heartedly on the slide, I counted our money again. If I was extremely careful, we could last perhaps a month. Then what? Emma Mitchell. The voice sent ice through my veins. I looked up to find Alec standing a few feet away, his dark coat fluttering in the chill wind. Today his suit was charcoal gray, his scarf deep burgundy. He looked like he'd stepped from the pages of a luxury magazine, utterly out of place in this run-down neighborhood. "Are you following me?" I demanded, my voice sharper than I intended. One eyebrow lifted slightly. "This is my city. I know everything that happens in it." His words should have sounded like hyperbole, but something in his tone made me believe him. I glanced around, noticing for the first time the black SUV with tinted windows parked across the street, the same two men from the airport standing beside it. "What do you want?" I asked, calling Lily back to my side. "The same thing I wanted yesterday, to help." He nodded toward Lily, who was approaching us cautiously. "Hello again, little one." To my surprise, Lily smiled shyly. "Hi." "You're the maze man." A hint of something that might have been amusement softened Alec's severe features. "I am." "Do you have another maze?" she asked hopefully. "Not today." He reached into his coat and produced a small, plush black cat with bright green eyes. "But I thought you might be missing your friend." "Mr. Whiskers, was it?" Lily's eyes widened as she reached for the toy. "It's not Mr. Whiskers," she said, but she clutched it to her chest nonetheless. "But I like him." I stared at Alec, caught between gratitude and alarm. "You bought her a toy?" It seemed a small thing. He turned those steel gray eyes back to me. "The shelter. How is it?" I bristled. "Fine. How did you know where?" "I told you. This is my city." He gestured toward a nearby bench. "May we sit? There are things you should know." Every instinct told me to refuse, to grab Lily and run. But where would we go? Back to the shelter with its paper-thin walls and shared bathrooms? To another day of rejection and dwindling funds? 5 minutes, I conceded, guiding Lily to the bench. She sat between us, already absorbed in examining her new toy. Alec rested his elbows on his knees, his gaze fixed on the barren trees ahead. "Your husband has filed a missing persons report. He's claiming you are emotionally unstable, that you've taken his child illegally." The world tilted beneath me. "How do you know that?" "As I said, I have connections." His jaw tightened. "The police here won't be looking too hard. They have other priorities. But it complicates things for you. Bank accounts, legal employment, housing. You're trying to scare me," I accused, though I knew he was right. "David would use every tool at his disposal to find us. I'm trying to prepare you." Alec turned to face me fully. "The shelter is not safe, not for long. Men like your husband, they know where to look." Lily was humming softly to herself, making the little cat dance along the bench between us, oblivious to the weight of our conversation. "What do you suggest then?" I asked bitterly. "That I go back? Let him finish what he started?" "No." The word was spoken with such quiet force that I flinched. "I suggest you accept my help. I have an apartment. Secure, comfortable, anonymous. It would give you time to establish yourself properly, get legal help for your situation." I laughed, the sound harsh and disbelieving. "An apartment. Out of the goodness of your heart. And what would you expect in return, Alec?" His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those gray eyes, something that might have been hurt, or might have been anger. "Nothing you're implying. I'm not your husband, Emma." The way he said it made me feel suddenly ashamed, though I had every right to be suspicious. "Then why? Why help a stranger?" Alec was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his accent was more pronounced, his voice lower. "Because once, someone helped my mother when she needed it. When I was not much older than your Lily." I studied his face, looking for deception, but finding only carefully controlled emotion. "I don't even know who you are, what you do. I'm a businessman with resources. That's all you need to know for now." He straightened. The vulnerability gone so quickly, I wondered if I'd imagined it. "The offer stands for 24 hours. After that, you're on your own." He stood, buttoning his coat against the sharpening wind. "The choice is yours, Emma Mitchell, but consider this. That shelter has 3 exits, all of them visible from the street. How long before he finds you?" My throat constricted at the thought. "You make it sound like I have no choice." We all have choices. His gaze dropped to Lily, who was now making her new toy talk to her in a squeaky voice. Some of us make them for more than just ourselves. With that, he walked away, his tall figure cutting through the playground like a shadow. One of his men opened the SUV door for him, and within moments, they were gone, leaving me alone on the bench with my daughter, and a decision that would change everything. That night, the shelter felt smaller, the walls thinner. Every creak and footstep in the hallway made me jolt awake, my mind painting David's enraged face in the darkness. Lily slept fitfully beside me, clutching her new black cat, which she'd named Shadow. The communal bathroom, with its flickering lights and rust-stained sinks, had a window that faced the street. As I washed my face the next morning, I found myself scanning the sidewalk below, looking for unfamiliar cars, for David's stocky silhouette. Or was I looking for a sleek black SUV instead? "You look tired, hun," Maureen commented when I brought Lily down for breakfast. "Rough night?" I nodded, accepting the chipped mug of coffee she offered. "Do you have a computer I could use? I need to check something." She directed me to an ancient desktop in a small office off the main hall. The internet connection was agonizingly slow, but eventually, I was able to access the news site from our hometown. My hands trembled as I typed "missing woman child" into the search bar. There it was. A small article, but with my name, my face, an old photo from David's Facebook page where I was smiling, looking nothing like the hollow-eyed woman I now saw in the mirror. Local man seeks public's help in finding missing wife and daughter. The article quoted David describing me as emotionally fragile, following a minor disagreement, suggesting I might be a danger to myself or Lily. Bile rose in my throat. He'd made himself the victim, just as he always did, and people would believe him. The charming restaurant owner, always ready with a smile and a free drink for the police officers who frequented his establishment. I closed the browser window and sat in the humming silence of the old computer. Alec had been right. David was coming for us, and he had the law on his side. When I returned to our room, Lily was playing with 2 other children, their mothers watching tiredly from nearby cots. One of them, a woman with faded red hair and a healing cut above her eyebrow, caught my eye with understanding. "First week's the hardest," she offered. "I'm Trish." I sat beside her, watching Lily giggle as she showed Shadow to a small boy. "Emma, how long have you been here?" 11 days. They'll be asking me to leave soon." She twisted a thin gold band on her finger. "Got a sister in Providence who might take us in. Better than going back, right?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure. "At least Trish had someone. That's a nice toy your girls got," she commented. "Don't see many new things in here." Friend gave it to her," I said, the word friend sticking in my throat. Trish's knowing eyes assessed me. "The kind of friend who might help you out of this place?" I looked away, uncomfortable with her perception. "Maybe." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Listen, I know that look, trying to decide if the devil you don't know is better than the one you do." She glanced at the children playing. "My advice? There's all kinds of bad out there, but at least pick the one that's not trying to kill you." Her bluntness startled a laugh from me, though there was nothing funny about our situation. "That simple, huh?" "Nothing simple when you're running," she stood, calling to her son. "But sometimes you gotta leap and hope the net appears." I spent the day in a haze of indecision, taking Lily to a nearby library where she could read picture books while I applied for jobs online. No responses, no prospects, just the steady tick of time running out on Alec's offer. When we returned to the shelter that evening, Maureen intercepted us at the door, her face grave. "Emma, can I speak with you privately?" My stomach dropped. "Is something wrong?" She glanced at Lily. "Why don't you go join the other children for dinner? It's pizza night." After Lily reluctantly left, Maureen led me to the small office. "We received a call today, a man claiming to be your husband, looking for you." The room seemed to tilt. "What did you tell him?" "Standard policy. We don't confirm or deny who stays with us." She studied my face. "But Emma, he knew details. Said you'd taken your daughter without permission, that you're in a fragile state." "He's lying," I whispered, though I knew it didn't matter. "David was closing in. I believe you." Maureen's eyes were kind but realistic. But you should know. He mentioned contacting Boston police. Said something about a custody order. I pressed my fingers against my eyes, trying to stem the panic rising within me. What do I do? Maureen sighed. We can try to connect you with legal aid, but honestly, if he's got resources and connections back home, it might be best to move on. Somewhere less obvious. Move on. To where? With what money? The black card in my pocket seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. Thank you for telling me. I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. She squeezed my arm gently. Whatever you decide, do it soon. These situations, they escalate quickly. I found Lily in the dining area, cheese from the pizza smeared across her cheek as she chatted with a girl a few years older than her. For a moment, I stood watching her. This resilient little person who'd already endured more upheaval than any child should. Could I really uproot her again? Could I risk losing her to David? After Lily fell asleep that night, I slipped into the hallway with my phone and the black card. The shelter was quiet, except for muffled crying from one of the rooms and the steady drip of a leaking pipe somewhere. I dialed the number before I could change my mind. 1 ring. 2. Then a crisp, professional voice. Yes, I need to speak with Alexander Volkov, I said, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. It's Emma Mitchell. A pause. Then, 1 moment. The line clicked, and suddenly Alex's voice was there, as if he'd been waiting for my call. Emma. Just my name. But the way he said it, like something precious held between careful hands, sent a shiver through me. Your offer, I said, cutting to the chase. Is it still open? Yes. No hesitation, no gloating at my surrender. I took a deep breath. We'll need to leave tonight. He called the shelter. He knows we're in Boston. Alex's voice hardened. I'll send a car. 30 minutes. Pack whatever you have. How will I know it's yours? The driver will say Harbor Haven. No one else knows those words. After he hung up, I stood in the dim hallway, questioning every choice that had led me to this moment. But when I pictured David's face twisted in rage, his hands around my throat the night before I'd fled, I knew I had no choice at all. I woke Lily gently, whispering that we needed to go on another adventure. She clutched Shadow to her chest and didn't complain as I helped her into her coat and shoes. Our few belongings fit easily into the backpack. I left a brief note for Maureen, thanking her, but explaining nothing. Then I led Lily through the silent hallways, past the sleeping forms of other women who'd fled their own nightmares. The night air bit at our cheeks as we slipped out a side door. The street was deserted except for a dark sedan idling at the curb, its engine a low purr in the stillness. A tall man in a driver's cap stood beside it, his face impassive. Harbor Haven, he said simply when we approached. I hesitated at the open car door, scanning the street one last time. What was I doing? Trusting a stranger who exuded danger from every pore. But then, what choice did I have? Adventure time, I whispered to Lily as I helped her into the car's warm interior. The drive took us through parts of Boston I hadn't seen, elegant brownstones with wrought iron fences, tree-lined streets where even the shadows seemed expensive. Lily fell asleep against me, lulled by the smooth motion of the luxury vehicle. Finally, we pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a modern high-rise. The driver opened our door and led us to a private elevator that required a key card to operate. Mr. Volkov is waiting for you, he said, his only words since Harbor Haven. The elevator ascended silently, opening directly into a spacious apartment that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering Boston skyline, the city lights reflecting off the polished hardwood floors. Everything was sleek, minimalist, and obviously expensive. Alex stood by one of the windows, a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. He'd removed his suit jacket and tie, his white shirt open at the collar. In the soft lighting, with the city spread beneath him, he looked like he owned not just this building, but everything his gaze touched. You came, he said, turning to face us. You knew I would. I shifted Lily's weight in my arms. Where can I put her down? He gestured toward a hallway. The guest rooms are prepared. Second door on the right. The bedroom was larger than our entire apartment back home, with a queen-sized bed draped in crisp white linens. I laid Lily down gently, removed her shoes, and tucked Shadow in beside her. She barely stirred. When I returned to the living room, Alec was pouring another drink. "Bourbon?" he offered. I shook my head. "I need a clear head." "Water, then. Or tea? Coffee?" He moved toward the kitchen, a space of gleaming stainless steel and marble. "Water is fine." I perched on the edge of an armchair, feeling acutely out of place in my worn jeans and faded sweater. "Thank you for this, but I need to understand what it means." Alec brought me a glass of water, then sat across from me, his posture relaxed but somehow still commanding. "It means you and your daughter are safe. For now. What do you want in return?" The question that had been burning inside me since the plane. His gray eyes studied me, unreadable. "Nothing you're not willing to give. That's not an answer." "No," he agreed. "It's not." We sat in silence for a moment, the city humming beneath us. "My husband," I finally said. "He won't stop looking." "Your husband," Alec replied, his voice taking on that dangerous edge I'd heard before, "will find that Boston is not as welcoming as he might hope." A chill ran down my spine at his words. "What does that mean? What exactly do you do, Alexander?" He smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Let's just say I have interests in many businesses throughout the city. Import, export, real estate, entertainment." The vague answer only confirmed what I'd begun to suspect on the plane. This man, with his bodyguards and mysterious influence, his ability to know things he shouldn't, he wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful in ways that existed outside the law. "You're not just a businessman," I said quietly. "No," he agreed again, taking a sip of his bourbon. "I'm not just that. I should have been terrified, should have grabbed Lily and run, but where would we go? Back to the shelter where David had already found us. Back home to his escalating violence? Why me?" I asked instead. "Why help us?" Alex set his glass down, his fingers lingering on the crystal. "Let's say I recognize something in you. Something familiar." "What?" "Determination. Strength you don't know you have yet." His eyes met mine, intense and somehow both cold and burning at once. "And because men who hurt women and children, they offend me. Personally." There was history there, dark and unspoken. I thought of what he'd said about his mother, wondered what scars he carried beneath his expensive shirts and cool composure. "How long can we stay?" I asked, practical concerns reasserting themselves, "as long as necessary." He stood, moving to a sleek console table where he withdrew a small envelope. "This apartment is secure. The building has guards, private access. Your husband won't find you here." He handed me the envelope. Inside was a key card, a cell phone, and several $100 bills. "The phone has my number programmed. Use it if you need anything, day or night." I stared at the cash. "I can't accept this." "You can, and you will." His tone brooked no argument. "For Lily, if not for yourself." He was right, of course. Pride was a luxury I couldn't afford, not with my daughter's safety at stake. "Tomorrow," Alec continued, "we'll discuss your situation more thoroughly. Legal options. Employment if you wish it. For tonight, rest." He moved toward the elevator, clearly preparing to leave. "You don't live here?" I asked, surprised. The corner of his mouth lifted in that almost smile. "I have many residences. This one is yours for now." The elevator doors slid open. "Good night, Emma Mitchell." As the doors closed on his tall figure, I stood alone in the vast apartment, the keycard and phone heavy in my palm. I had escaped one dangerous man only to place myself in the orbit of another. But somehow, as I looked out at the city below, I felt something I hadn't in years. Safe. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting geometric patterns across the polished floors. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. The bed too soft, the silence too complete. Then it all came flooding back. The shelter, Alec's offer, our midnight escape. "Mommy?" Lily's small voice came from the doorway. She stood clutching Shadow, her curls wild from sleep, eyes wide as she took in our new surroundings. "Where are we?" "A friend's place," I said, opening my arms to her. She climbed onto the bed and nestled against me. "Do you like it?" She nodded solemnly. "It's big. And quiet. No crying ladies." My heart squeezed at her observation. "Children noticed everything, even when we thought they didn't." "Are you hungry?" Let's see what's in the kitchen. To my surprise, the refrigerator was fully stocked. Fresh fruit, vegetables, milk, eggs, and more. The pantry held cereal, pasta, and other staples. Even coffee beans in a sealed container beside a grinder. Alec had thought of everything. As I prepared breakfast, Lily explored the apartment, her initial shyness giving way to curiosity. "Mommy, there's a TV in my room, and look at this bathtub. It's like a swimming pool." Her excitement was infectious, and I found myself smiling despite the uncertainty hanging over us. After breakfast, I explored the apartment more thoroughly myself. Besides the 2 bedrooms, there was a home office with a sleek computer, a small gym room with exercise equipment, and a balcony offering breathtaking views of the city. On the desk in the office, I found another envelope with my name written in bold, elegant script. Inside was a document folder containing legal papers, blank restraining order forms, custody petition templates, and the business card of someone named Eleanor Winters, Escommerds, with a note, "She's expecting your call, discreet and thorough." There was also a smaller envelope containing a bank card and a note with a PIN number. I didn't want to think about how much money Alec might have put in the account. The cell phone he'd given me buzzed with a text message. "Car available if needed, driver on call. A." I sat at the desk, overwhelmed by the scope of his assistance. What did he want from me? No one did this much for a stranger without expecting something in return. Yet I couldn't deny the relief coursing through me. For the first time since I'd fled our home, I could breathe without feeling like the walls were closing in. Lily was safe, smiling, exploring her new adventure, with genuine delight rather than forced bravery. I called the lawyer first. Eleanor Winters was brisk but kind, asking direct questions about my marriage, David's abuse, and my flight. She didn't seem surprised when I mentioned Alec's name. "Mr. Volkov has briefed me on the basic situation," she said. "But I'll need details from you to build a solid case for emergency custody and a restraining order." "Will it work?" I asked, my throat tight. "He has connections back home, people who believe him." "So do I," she replied simply. "And more importantly, so does Mr. Volkov. We'll need documentation of the abuse. Medical records, photographs, witness statements if possible." I had some photos. Bruises I'd documented secretly, hidden in an encrypted email account David didn't know about. But would it be enough? "Can we meet today?" I asked. We arranged for her to come to the apartment that afternoon. "It's safer this way," she explained, "until we have the restraining order in place." After hanging up, I called the number Alec had programmed into the phone. It rang only once before he answered. "Emma." Just my name, but there was something in the way he said it, like he'd been waiting for my call. I wanted to thank you for all of this." The words felt inadequate for what he'd done. "You've spoken with Eleanor?" he asked, bypassing my gratitude. "Yes, she's coming this afternoon." "Good. She's the best in Boston for cases like yours." There was a pause, the sound of papers shuffling. "How is Lily?" The question surprised me. "She's good. Happy to have her own TV." A soft chuckle, warm and genuine. A sound I hadn't heard from him before. "There are children's books in the lower shelf of the office, and art supplies in the cabinet beside the refrigerator. I wasn't sure what she might like." He'd thought of Lily's needs before we'd even arrived. This man who exuded danger had purchased children's books and crayons. "Why are you doing all this?" I asked, the question escaping before I could stop it. Silence stretched between us. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, his accent more pronounced. "I told you. Men who hurt women and children offend me." "It seems like more than that." Another pause. "Perhaps it is. We'll discuss it when I see you." "When will that be?" "Tonight. I have business to attend to first." After we hung up, I spent the day helping Lily explore her new surroundings. She was delighted with the art supplies, covering papers with bright crayon drawings of our adventure. I didn't ask her about the tall, dark figure that appeared in several pictures, standing protectively beside smaller figures I recognized as Lily and me. Eleanor Winters arrived precisely at 3, a striking woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair and the sharpest eyes I'd ever seen. She took one look at my face, the fading bruises, the healing split lip, and nodded as if confirming something to herself. "Let's build your case," she said, placing a sleek leather briefcase on the dining table. For the next 2 hours, we documented everything. Every incident of abuse I could remember. Every threat. Every time David had used his connections to intimidate me or prevent me from seeking help. I showed her the photos I'd kept hidden, my hands shaking as I accessed the secret email account. "This is good," Eleanor said, her expression grim as she examined a particularly brutal bruise that had encircled my throat last year. "Not for you, obviously, but for our case. Has he ever hurt Lily?" "Not physically," I said. "But she's seen things, heard things. The night we left, I swallowed hard. He said if I ever tried to leave, he'd make sure I never saw her again." Eleanor's pen paused above her notepad. "Has he made any contact since you left?" "Not directly. But he's filed a missing persons report, contacted the women's shelter." She nodded, making another note. "I'll file for an emergency restraining order tonight. Given the evidence and his pursuit, we should have it by morning. The custody petition will take longer, but the restraining order will give us leverage." After she left, promising to call with updates, I felt drained but somehow lighter. Someone was fighting for us now, someone who wasn't afraid of David or his connections. Lily and I ate dinner from the well-stocked kitchen, a simple meal of pasta and vegetables that she helped prepare, standing on a chair beside me at the counter. It felt almost normal, this domestic scene in our borrowed luxury. For a moment I could pretend we were just any mother and daughter, not fugitives from a violent man. After dinner, as Lily watched a movie in her room, I stood at the window watching the city lights flicker on. The sun had set, casting Boston into a tapestry of shadows and electric glow. Somewhere out there, was David looking for us? Had he already arrived in the city, prowling the streets near the shelter? The elevator's soft chime startled me from my thoughts. I turned to see Alex step into the apartment, his tall figure silhouetted against the metal doors. Tonight he wore a black suit with a deep blue tie, his overcoat draped over one arm. "You're still here," he said, and I couldn't tell if it was approval or surprise in his voice. "Did you think I'd run again?" He set his coat on a chair, his movements precise and elegant. "Some would. Fear makes people unpredictable. I'm tired of running," I admitted. "And Lily, she needs stability." Alec nodded, moving to the bar cart near the window. "Drink?" This time I accepted. "Wine, if you have it." He poured 2 glasses, handing me one with a careful distance between our fingers. Always respectful of my space, I realized, unlike David, who had used touch to control and intimidate. "Eleanor called me," he said, sipping his bourbon. "She's filing the restraining order tonight. She seems very efficient." A small smile curved his lips. "She's the best at what she does, ruthless when necessary. Like you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. His eyes met mine over the rim of his glass, unreadable yet intense. "When necessary," he agreed. We stood in silence for a moment. The city spread below us like a constellation. "Your husband is in Boston," he said finally. My hand tightened around the wine glass. "How do you know?" "As I said, this is my city." Alec's voice hardened slightly. "He arrived this afternoon, went directly to the police station, then to the shelter." Fear curled through my stomach. "Does he know where I am?" "No." The certainty in his voice was oddly reassuring. "And he won't. This building is secure. The staff are loyal to me." I took a steadying breath. "What happens when he doesn't find us? He won't just give up." "Let me worry about that." Something in his tone made me look at him more carefully. "What does that mean? What are you planning?" Alex set his glass down, his expression shuddering. "It's better if you don't know the details." "If it involves us, I have a right to know." He studied me for a long moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. "Your husband has a record. Arrests for assault before you met him. Charges dropped mysteriously. Tax irregularities at his restaurant. A gambling habit he's kept hidden from you." My mouth went dry. "How do you know all this?" "I have resources." He picked up his glass again, turning it slowly in his hands. "Information can be a powerful weapon, Emma. More effective than violence, often." "You're going to blackmail him?" The thought was both horrifying and tempting. I'm going to persuade him that pursuing you is against his best interests. A chill ran down my spine at the calm certainty in his voice. And if that doesn't work? Alex's eyes darkened. There are other methods of persuasion. I should have been frightened by the implicit threat, but all I felt was a cold relief. Someone powerful was standing between David and us. Someone David couldn't intimidate or bribe. Mommy? Lily's voice came from the hallway. She stood in her pajamas, shadow clutched against her chest, eyes widening when she saw Alec. Oh. Hello, maze man. His severe expression softened instantly. Hello, little one. I see Shadow is keeping you company. She nodded, approaching cautiously. He's a good cat. He keeps the bad dreams away. Something flickered across Alec's face. Pain, perhaps, or recognition. That's a very special power. Are you staying here too? She asked, looking between us. No, he replied gently. This is your home now, you and your mother's. I'm just visiting. Oh. She seemed to consider this. But you'll come back? His eyes met mine over her head, seeking permission. I found myself nodding slightly. Yes, he told her. I'll come back. After I tucked Lily in again, I returned to find Alec standing at the window, his posture rigid, hands clasped behind his back. She likes you, I said quietly. Children are better judges of character than most give them credit for. He turned to face me, though perhaps not in this case. There was self-awareness in his words that surprised me. Who are you really, Alexander Volkov? Beyond the suits and the bodyguards and the mysterious business interests. He considered me for a long moment. Someone who recognizes the look of a hunted woman. Someone who once watched his mother wear that same look, day after day, until it became her only expression. The admission hung in the air between us, heavy with unspoken history. What happened to her? I asked softly. His jaw tightened. She died, before I was old enough to protect her, before I had the power to change our circumstances. Now I understood. The reason he'd approached me on the plane. Why he'd offered help to a complete stranger. I wasn't just a random woman in trouble. I was the embodiment of a past he couldn't change. A wrong he couldn't right. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. It was a long time ago. He straightened, the vulnerability disappearing behind his composed facade. But it taught me something valuable. Power isn't just about having money or influence. It's about using it when it matters. As he moved toward the elevator, he paused beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Sandalwood and something darker, uniquely him. Rest tonight, Emma. Tomorrow will bring changes. Good ones or bad ones? I asked. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. That depends entirely on your husband's capacity for self-preservation. After he left, I stood alone in the vast apartment, feeling both protected and exposed. I had placed myself and Lily in the orbit of a dangerous man, but one whose danger, for now at least, was directed elsewhere, toward David. And God help me, I couldn't bring myself to feel anything but relief. Dawn broke with a crystalline clarity, sunlight spilling across Boston's skyline and into our borrowed sanctuary. I'd slept better than I had in years, despite knowing David was somewhere in the city, hunting for us. The knowledge that we were protected, by walls, by security, by Alec's invisible influence, had allowed me to finally let my guard down. Lily was different too. The shadows beneath her eyes had faded, her smile coming more readily as we made breakfast together. She chattered about Shadow's adventures in dreamland, about the books she'd discovered on the shelf, about the view from her bedroom window, simple joys I hadn't been able to give her before. The phone Alec had provided buzzed with a message just as we finished eating. Turn on the news. Channel 7. With a sense of trepidation, I found the remote and switched on the sleek television mounted on the wall. The local morning news was just finishing a weather report when the anchor's expression turned serious. Breaking news this morning from the Boston Police Department. David Mitchell, a restaurant owner from Indiana who reported his wife and child missing last week, has been arrested on multiple charges including tax evasion, money laundering, and illegal gambling operations. Mitchell had come to Boston claiming his wife had abducted their child, but police now say evidence suggests she was fleeing domestic abuse. My hand flew to my mouth as David's mugshot appeared on screen. He looked furious, his face contorted in the same rage I'd seen directed at me countless times. Sources close to the investigation tell us federal authorities had been building a case against Mitchell for months. Anonymous tips led to the discovery of falsified business records and connections to illegal gambling operations. Mitchell is being held without bail pending extradition to Indiana, where he faces additional charges. The phone buzzed again. Eleanor has your restraining order. She's filing for emergency custody today. I sank onto the couch, my legs suddenly unable to support me. It had happened so quickly, so thoroughly. David neutralized, his credibility destroyed, his power stripped away, and I knew exactly who was responsible. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Lily climbed onto the couch beside me, her small hand patting my cheek. I hadn't even realized tears were streaming down my face. Happy tears, baby. Just happy tears. When Alec arrived that evening, he brought dinner. Gourmet takeout from a restaurant I later learned was one of his many business interests. Lily greeted him with unexpected enthusiasm, proudly showing him her latest drawings, and Shadow's new bed she'd constructed from pillows. I waited until she was occupied with dessert, an elaborate chocolate confection that had her wide-eyed with delight, before leading Alec to the balcony where we could speak privately. "You had him arrested," I said without preamble, the cool night air raising goosebumps on my arms. Alec leaned against the railing, the city lights reflecting in his gray eyes. "I merely ensured the proper authorities received information they already should have had. Information you gathered. Yes." I studied his profile, sharp against the night sky. Was it true? Everything they said about him? Every word. He turned to face me fully. "Your husband has been running a money laundering operation through his restaurant for years. The gambling debts, the tax evasion, all of it verifiable, documented, real." A bitter laugh escaped me, and I never knew. All those late nights he claimed he was working. The mysterious cash flow problems followed by sudden windfalls. "You saw what he allowed you to see." Alec's voice was gentle, lacking its usual edge. "That's how men like him operate." "And men like you?" I challenged. "What do you allow people to see?" Something shifted in his expression. A softening, perhaps, or a decision made. "More than I should, in your case." The admission hung between us, weighted with implications neither of us seemed ready to address. "Eleanor called," I said instead. "The judge granted the restraining order. She thinks the custody petition will be approved by the end of the week. With David's arrest, there's no contest." "Good." Satisfaction flickered across his features. "You'll need to decide what comes next." "What do you mean?" He gestured toward the apartment. "This arrangement was meant to be temporary. A safe harbor while we dealt with your husband. That's been accomplished." Fear clutched at my chest. "You're asking us to leave?" "No." He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him in the cool night air. "I'm giving you a choice, Emma, something you haven't had in a very long time." Inside, Lily's laughter floated through the open door, bright and uninhibited. I glanced back to see her carefully arranging Shadow and her other new toys, gifts that had mysteriously appeared throughout the week, for a tea party. "What are my options?" I asked, turning back to Alec. "You can stay here as long as you need, find work when you're ready, build a new life in Boston for yourself and Lily." His eyes held mine, intense and unblinking. "Or if you prefer, I can arrange for you to go elsewhere. A fresh start, completely separated from everything, including me." The possibility of complete independence stretched before me, tempting, but also terrifying. "Why would you do that? Help me leave, after everything you've done to help us stay." Alec's jaw tightened, "Because whatever happens next between us should be your choice, not made out of desperation or gratitude or fear." "And what do you want to happen next?" I dared to ask. For the first time since I'd met him, Alexander Volkov looked uncertain. "I want to know you, Emma Mitchell. Beyond the circumstances that brought us together. Even with all the baggage I bring, a traumatized daughter, a criminal ex-husband, no job, no money of my own, none of that matters to me." His voice deepened with intensity. "What matters is what I've seen in you from the beginning. Strength you don't recognize yet. Courage that brought you onto that plane, determination to protect what's yours at any cost. Qualities you admire in business associates? I asked, unable to keep the skepticism from my voice. A rare smile curved his lips. Qualities I admire in anyone worth knowing. He didn't reach for me, maintained that careful distance he'd always kept. But something had shifted between us. A door opening to possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to consider. I don't even know what you really do, I said softly. Your business interests, as you call them. Real estate, primarily. Import, export, security. He named them matter-of-factly. Some legitimate, some in gray areas. I won't lie to you about that. A mafia boss, I stated plainly, watching his reaction. He didn't flinch. Some would use that term. I prefer to think of myself as a man who creates order where law fails to do so. And the violence that comes with that order? Only when necessary. His eyes darkened. Only against those who deserve it. Men like David. The unspoken hung between us. Lily likes you, I said, glancing back at my daughter, who was now attempting to balance a toy teacup on Shadow's head. Children recognize those who would protect them. He followed my gaze. She reminds me of myself at that age. Resilient. Observant. And me? I asked, turning back to him. What do I remind you of? His expression softened, revealing a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. Hope, he said simply. Something I thought I'd lost. Inside, Lily called my name, eager to show me Shadow's new trick. I hesitated at the threshold between the balcony and the warmth of the apartment. I need time, I told him. To think, to decide. Alec nodded, accepting this without question. Take all the time you need. The choice will always be yours, Emma. 3 months later, I stood in the same spot on the balcony, watching snow fall gently over Boston. Behind me, laughter echoed through the apartment, Lily showing Alec her newest drawing, his deep voice raising in exaggerated amazement at her artistic talents. I'd found work at a restaurant owned by one of Alec's legitimate business associates. Lily was enrolled in a good school nearby. The divorce was finalized, the custody arrangement permanent. David would serve at least 5 years, with supervised visitation only after extensive rehabilitation. We were safe. We were healing. We were building something new, and Alec? He had kept his word, giving me space and time, never pushing. But he had remained present, a steady force in our evolving lives. I'd come to know the man behind the power, his dry humor, his unexpected gentleness with Lily, his unwavering loyalty to those under his protection. Yes, there were darker aspects to his world that I was still learning to reconcile, but there was also honor there, and a kind of justice that sometimes the law couldn't provide. Hot chocolate, he said, joining me on the balcony with 2 steaming mugs. Lily insisted I add extra marshmallows to yours. I accepted the mug, our fingers brushing in the exchange. The contact no longer made me flinch. Instead, it sent warmth spiraling through me that had nothing to do with the hot drink. She's getting bossy, I observed with a smile. She's getting confident, he corrected. As are you. The snow continued to fall around us, transforming the city into something magical and new. Like us, I thought, like the life we were cautiously building together. Stay, I said, the word emerging as both invitation and decision. Not just tonight. Not just as our protector. His eyes, those steel-gray eyes that had first assessed me on the plane, softened as they held mine. Are you certain? I stepped closer, eliminating the careful distance he had always maintained. Yes. This is my choice, Alec. Eyes open, no desperation, no fear. When his lips finally met mine, gentle yet possessive, I knew I'd made the right decision. We were both scarred by our pasts, both cautious with our trust. But sometimes the most unlikely encounters. A terrified woman fleeing violence, a powerful man with his own ghosts, could create something unexpected.